I'ma be honest here, when looking at the lineup of the Land Before Time movies, I was honestly expecting the cynical adult side of myself to be there the entire time watching them. But honestly, I was reduced to nostalgic putty. Just this little animated intro with the airplane brought me back to the days of renting out the VHS tapes for my public library and watching them on the old tube TV. You know, before I became an adult with responsibilities and crippling depression, a 9-to-5 job, financial pressure. Anyway, let's watch some dinosaurs. As a bit of a preface, I'll go through the sequels in order and then rank them from best to worst in the end, since some of these sequels depend on continuity. I also will not be including the animated series in this video, however, I'll cover it in a future video. I also won't be mentioning every voiceover role, unless I find the voice actor to be particularly remarkable, either in a negative or positive way, as I would essentially be here all day. And as always, everything in this video is my own personal opinion. If you agree or disagree with anything I say in this video, that is totally fine, and I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments down below. With that out of the way, let's get started. Of course, how could we start anywhere other than with the first movie, The Land Before Time, released in 1988 and directed and produced by the animation titan himself, Don Bluth. When it came to the development of this movie, they threw around a lot of ideas for the story, before deciding that this film would ultimately be about prejudice, that these species would hate each other and have nothing to do with each other at first, which would become a central theme in the story. Originally, The Land Before Time was not going to have any dialogue, like the Rite of Spring segment for Fantasia. However, they did decide to use voice actors in order to make the film more appealing to children. Bring on talents like Gabrielle Damon for Littlefoot, Candace Hudson for Sarah, Will Ryan for Petrie, and the young Judith Barcy for Ducky, who also worked on Don Bluth's other film, All Dogs Go to Heaven, and was sadly murdered by her abusive father about 4 months before the film was released. Rest in peace. Originally, this film was going to have more dark and intense scenes, but a lot of them unfortunately ended up getting cut out in order to not frighten children and to bring it down to a G rating instead of a PG rating. This ended up cutting out 19 fully animated Sharptooth scenes and a further 10 minutes of distressing footage being cut out just weeks before the film's release, bringing down the runtime from about 80 minutes to 69 minutes. Sadly, a lot of these animated sequences are lost media and were likely destroyed, with only a few storyboards, clips for promotions, and cell drawings surviving. I wish we could have seen these so bad. That's enough of the background though. How does the actual movie hold up? Personally, I find that the original movie still holds up to this day. I absolutely love the animation and the more earthy and muted color scheme used. And the animation in scenes like the Sharptooth attack or the reveal of the Great Valley are absolutely stunning. Some people might find some scenes to be a little bit too cutesy, but I found these scenes to still be charming. I credit this to the actual characterization of these dinosaurs and the voice talents behind them, especially Judith Barcy. Ducky wasn't necessarily my favorite as a kid, but I found her to be absolutely adorable and charming here. There are also a lot of deep, dark, and depressing themes and scenes throughout the movie, the most iconic, of course, being the death of Littlefoot's mother. The scene of her passing away still cuts deep to this day, and the fact that we linger on Littlefoot's grief in future scenes also makes the event more emotional. I like that it's not just brushed over after a couple scenes. Some might find it a negative that the character Sarah is pretty unlikable throughout the movie, as she is prejudiced, stubborn, and prideful. However, I personally like this aspect of the film, as she is a foil to Littlefoot throughout the movie, with Sarah being risen with the views that different species cannot associate with each other, and Littlefoot not understanding this prejudice and being willing to let other dinosaurs join as her to the Great Valley. However, the more that Sarah sticks to her guns with not associating with the other dinosaurs, the harder her survival is and the more peril she falls into. Though I will say, and this hurt because he was my favorite as a child, but Petrie is really annoying in this movie. I don't know if it's his particular vocal performance or his more neurotic behavior, but he was unfortunately really grating in this film. But otherwise, while I know this wasn't a perfect movie, I absolutely love The Land Before Time. I still think it's so emotional, charming, and entertaining. Now, take everything you know about the first Land Before Time, pick it up, hold it gently, give it a little kiss, now yeet it into space! Because the sequels throw out many of the aspects of the original movie. Starting in 1994, a series of sequels got released year after year, at least until Wisdom of Friends in 2007, as Journey of the Brave got released nearly a decade later in 2016. They are toned down to be more family friendly, and the movies are in a musical format, typically having 3 songs per movie. And since these movies are direct-to-video, the animation looks a lot cheaper, with a lot of CGI props and backgrounds being used in later movies. Because it would be redundant for me to do so, I won't go into detail about the songs and the animation for each movie, unless there's something particularly noteworthy, either positive or negative, for me to talk about. So I'll try not to scream about every CGI log that pops up. With that out of the way, let's talk about The Great Valley Adventure, also known as A Dinosaur Bullies His Brother for Being Vegetarian for an Hour.
How do you know what's good for me? That's my opinion!
This one was the most jarring since I watched it fresh off the heels of the original Land Before Time, so I feel like I had a more visceral reaction than I normally would when watching this, but it honestly isn't the worst. It's a bit slow to get into the actual plot, as the first 15 or so minutes is filled with the kids kind of wondering where they could play and complaining about how it's so hard to not be taken seriously by grown-ups when you're a kid. Like I said, much different to the dark themes of the original. Shenanigans ensue when they try to stop two egg-stealing dinosaurs, Strut and Ozzy, from stealing one of Ducky's mom's eggs. However, the egg belonging to Ducky's family rolls back to the Great Valley, and the kids come across a different egg and bring it back to the valley by accident, which hatches a Sharptooth they named Chomper. Chomper brings in an interesting dynamic of seeing how a sharp-toothed dinosaur could get along with leaf-eating dinosaurs. And it's nice to see Chomper's parents interacting with him when they reunite. Ozzy and Strut definitely steal the show, which I am going to completely credit to their voice actors. Strut is voiced by Rob Paulsen, who voices Spike in this series, and Pinky from Pinky and the Brain, which definitely explains the vibe I'm getting from these two.
What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky.
Eggs.
Ozzy is voiced by Jeff Bennett, who also voices Petrie in this series, the Summer Meat Trickster, and Johnny Bravo. Basically, these two are voice acting titans and bring so much energy to their role. Even the song Eggs, which really wouldn't be that great of a song if sung by anyone else, is really elevated by their acting and turned the song into a fun, catchy, and bouncy song that has been stuck in my damn head ever since I watched the movie.
Colors and shapes and assorted sizes, gobble them all for appetizers. Eggs to see.
But yeah, this movie is one of the more simple ones. The third movie in the series is The Time of the Great Giving. In this one, Littlefoot and his friends are being bullied by three bigger dinosaurs, Hip and his lackeys, which makes up one of the plot lines. For the second plot line, the water that comes into the Great Valley ends up getting blocked by rocks in the mysterious beyond, which severely limits the water coming in and also slowly dries up their food sources. Sarah's dad, Mr. Freehorn, decides to take charge to ration out the water, which gets on the nerves of a lot of the dinosaurs. With the grown-ups doing nothing but arguing, the kids decide to locate water on their own. However, trouble with a wildfire and Sharptooth arises. The adults realize that they will need to unite in order to solve their crisis, and as their valley regrows from the fire, they make sure to share food with everyone to make sure all dinosaurs can survive, bringing about the time of the Great Giving. He said the thing! Some bits of this film are pretty slow, and apart from the bully song, the songs in here aren't all that fantastic. However, I do like Mr. Freehorn's reflection on his attitudes towards Longnecks after Littlefoot's grandpa saves him and Sarah from the fire, as well as how he treats others after watching Hip's father yell at his child, as it seems to mark a big shift in his attitude in later sequels compared to the first couple movies. I also like the narration at the end of how the dinosaurs helped each other during a time of crisis. Next up, we got Journey for the Mists. In this one, a herd of migrating longnecks come to the Great Valley temporarily, as their previous home is flooded and not safe for them to inhabit, all of this being due to changing climates. Unfortunately, Littlefoot's grandpa gets ill and will die without the Moonflower from the Valley of the Mists to help him. Of course, the kids go save the day. I don't think a single song in here is as catchy as songs like Eggs or When You're Big, however, I do think the overall quality of the songs is more consistent, and they're all at least better than the weaker songs of the two previous titles, if that makes any sense. The villains are a bit more of comedy relief, as they argue like a dysfunctional married couple. A lot of the time it is pretty funny, but sometimes they get to be a little bit too much. We also get to introduce to Allie, a longneck that likes Littlefoot, but doesn't really like his friends because they're different species, so it brings back the prejudice from the first movie. It's really weird because I would think that they would bring up parallels to Sarah and Allie, as they've had the same attitudes, though with Sarah being a little bit more aggressive, but instead Sarah's just a like, I can't believe that she would think this. Allie is the worst, and gets mad at her. I think it would have been nice for them to bring this up considering it was Sarah's entire character arc of the first movie, but whatever. I do like that there are higher stakes in this one as well. Okay, the Mysterious Island was definitely the most nostalgic for me, as I watched this one almost as much as the original. In this one, a swarm of locusts gobble up all the food in the Great Valley, so the dinosaurs initially decide to leave the valley together in order to find more food. However, as appetites and desperation grows, so do tensions, and the dinosaurs decide that the next morning every herd will fend for themselves. The kids, not wanting to be separated from each other, decide to go out on their own to find food, leaving tracks for the adults to follow. However, they end up getting stuck in an island out in the middle of the ocean. It's not so bad though, as they do reunite with Chomper, who keeps them fed and hidden from his parents. But after a third Sharptooth attacks, the parents end up defending the kids and Chomper from the intruder, and the kids fall into the good graces of the parents after shaming Chomper from drowning in the ocean. As Littlefoot and company are helped back to the shore, they are reunited with their parents, who find enough food to last them until the Great Valley is green again. The best song of the batch is probably Big Water, which is one of the best songs sung by the protagonists. And while it is touching, for some reason it's also really funny having Littlefoot talk about the fact that his mother is unalive when the other kids are talking about how they miss their parents during a song. It's also cool to see a fight between Sharptooth instead of the normal Leaf Eater versus Sharptooth battles. And the fight actually gets a bit brutal at points for the direct-to-video standards. And the fact that they use subtitles for the parents is hilarious, and some of the quips they make are funny too. The Secret of Sora's Rock is, unfortunately, kind of boring. It's basically the Lone Ranger meets dinosaurs, as Littlefoot becomes obsessed with a lone long-necked dinosaur that saved the valley. The kids accidentally break the coveted Sora's Rock that was said to sprout out of the ground after the lone dinosaur defeated a Sharptooth or whatever, supposedly causing bad luck to come across the Great Valley. But they take a tooth from a Sharptooth that was somehow alive after falling 100 feet into a canyon and being out cold for days on end, but I digress. And they fix the statue, and Littlefoot realizes that there was always a hero in his life when it comes to his grandfather. A Western-themed dinosaur movie is kind of weird, but it could potentially be fun for little kids. Unfortunately, this isn't really the case. It feels like there wasn't really enough story to actually fill a full hour. The Stone of Cold Fire is one of the first movies where I started to notice that CGI was really starting to be implemented into backgrounds and props. The effectiveness of the CGI effects in these movies really varies. Sometimes it looks perfectly fine, and other times it's really badly implemented and distracting. Anyways, this film is about Littlefoot seeing a meteorite crash in the mysterious beyond, but no one really believes him that it's a special rock, other than two rainbow faces and Petrie's shitty uncle Tyranno, who had gotten driven away from the herd in the past. Tyranno, believing the rock to have mysterious powers, manipulates Petrie into getting the location of the rock from Littlefoot, and when Ducky hears Tyranno's plan involving the Stone of Cold Fire, he and his lackeys kidnap her and go to look for the stone. Of course, the kids go out after Ducky and Petrie's uncle, and we find out the whole reason Tyranno got driven away from the herd in the first place was because he acted like he knew everything and tried to be the leader of the herd. Some dinosaurs ended up believing him and joined his herd, however, Tyranno's herd got trapped by a herd of Sharptooth, and when Tyranno was faced with the peril, he ended up flying away. The two weird rainbow faces end up helping the kids in getting to the Stone of Cold Fire before Tyranno does, even though supposedly they are not supposed to. But Tyranno and his lackeys arrive and try to take the powers of the stone, but, well, it's a rock, so nothing actually happens. The volcano that the stone landed on becomes more active, so everyone needs to get the F out. And when Ducky nearly falls off the mountain, Tyranno ends up saving her, showing that there's a good side to him deep down. However, this doesn't save him from banishment from the Great Valley, at least for a few years. But he decides that this time, he will take banishment with grace and hopefully return a changed person. Well, or pterodactyl. And Littlefoot finds out that the two rainbow faces are aliens. Yeah, it's weird. Actually, I didn't mind some of the music in this one, though the whole alien thing is one of the most infamous head-scratchers of the whole series. There are some really rough bits in the animation, like really awkward CGI backgrounds, and a stalactite that Ducky's holding on to is pixelated for a few seconds for some reason, and some dumb moments for the characters like Spike eating the vine that the kids are trying to use to cross a ravine. I will say that Tyranno's character is intriguing. He has conflicting motivations of why he wants to be a leader of a herd, both because he wants to prove that he could be a good leader and make up for what he did, and other times it feels like he wants to be leader because he has a massive ego and thinks he's the hottest thing on the block. In The Big Freeze, we are introduced to a few new characters. Mr. Thicknose, an old dinosaur that's respected for being wise and big for all kinds of experiences, and a Stegosaurus herd that's passing through that makes Ducky's family and Spike question their family dynamics.
And where is your family, dear?
Hello, I'm his mother.
Really? How nice.
Unfortunately, with climate change, snow starts to fall in the Great Valley, killing off all their food. This makes the dinosaurs lose faith in Mr. Thicknose, as he didn't know anything about the snow. And Spike at first goes with the Stegosaurus herd to live with and find food. Ducky, who was mad at Spike nearly the entire movie, and who angrily told him to go live with the Stegosaurus family after having a hard time deciding who to live with, feels bad and goes off to find the Stegosaurus herd on their own. The rest of the kids decide to go find Ducky, and Mr. Thicknose ends up joining them. They all end up finding food and warm water that the dinosaurs could live in until the snow melts, and they find out that Mr. Thicknose never really experienced any of the things he talked about experiencing. He was just kind of a shy kid who was invisible to everyone else and would listen to stories from migrating herds, and just ended up talking about these experiences to others as he got older, acting like he had been through these journeys and learned knowledge firsthand. After a while, they all realize they need to bring the Great Valley dinosaurs to the hot springs, which they are able to do so. And Spike leads the Stegosauruses to the hot springs when he is able to smell the food. Ducky and Spike make up, and Spike decides to stay with Ducky's family, and Mr. Thicknose earns real respect from the other dinosaurs. And once the snow melts, everyone returns to the Great Valley. I actually really like the character of Mr. Thicknose in this one, and I like that they focus a bit on Spike's integration with Ducky's family. This is also the second time Spike speaks in the series. The first time being Journey for the Mist, when he says Ducky's name, and the second time being here when he cries out for their mom, which are big moments for the series. I also like little moments like Mr. Freehorn playing with snowballs with Grandpa Longneck, as his character seems to have come a long way. Though, I do have to say, how did these dinosaurs survive this long in the snow?
Oh, she's mad at somebody.
Alright, Journey to Big Water. The plot of this one is actually pretty simple. An aquatic critter named Mo accidentally gets stuck in the Great Valley along with a swimming Sharptooth when there is massive flooding. Littlefoot and his friends decide to take Mo back to the ocean where he came from after they get separated from their parents in an earthquake that splits the Great Valley. The rest of the movie mostly follows the kids' adventure as they follow the river towards the ocean to take Mo home. With the story being so simple, the beginning part of the movie is unfortunately really slow with getting started.
Boring, boring, very, very boring.
However, it's okay once we get the story going. Mo kind of teeters between being really endearing and really annoying.
I am under the water. Please help me.
Mo, you're not stuck. You're all right.
Oh, Mo not really stuck. Mo just having...
And some obstacles seem forced, like how they're forcing Mo to jump over a large rock Free Willy style when there are smaller rocks and gaps between the rocks for him to swim through. Though we at least do get a short reprise of Big Water, and I will say that the animation during the fight with the Sharptooth is one of the best sequences in the direct-to-video sequels. Side note though, how is it that they are able to name a species of dinosaurs rainbow faces, but they call rainbow sky colors?
Wow, the sky colors.
So the sequels range in quality, but none of them get to the same level in quality as the original, though the Great Longneck Migration is probably pretty close to that level, in some areas at least. In this one, longneck dinosaurs are getting dreams about the sun falling down, so they all migrate to this one area because apparently at one point longnecks had to stretch their necks up to keep the sun in the sky, and that's why they have long necks, but it's literally just a solar eclipse. This is the dumb part of the movie. Let's talk about the good parts. When Littlefoot and his grandparents get to the area, they meet a longneck named Braun, who actually turns out to be Littlefoot's father. He came back from getting milk. This is a huge thing for the series. Of course, Littlefoot is shocked and confused at first, and doesn't react well to it, which I do like, especially considering he never even saw his dad. He does find out that his dad did get separated from Littlefoot and his mother, and had heard about what happened to his mother, but never heard about what happened to Littlefoot, and tried to search for him for years, but along the way came across other longnecks who needed help, and eventually became the leader of a herd and had to settle. We do get scenes of Littlefoot bonding with Braun, as well as another longneck named Shorty, who Braun had brought in along with other children into the herd. At first the two don't get along as Shorty thinks Littlefoot is taking Braun's attention, but they reconcile when Littlefoot says he wants to be Shorty's brother. On the flip side, we have Littlefoot's friends on their own journey to find Littlefoot. They come across an old longneck named Pat. We get some good bits of comedy relief in this side plot, like a crocodile getting so annoyed at the kids in Deciphanus that it decides, screw being selfie, I'll just eat them. But we also get some good moments between the kids and Pat, who they even offer to come back with them to the Great Valley. Unfortunately, we don't get to see him in the other movies though, so boo. But the strengths of this movie lie in the relationships and in some of the humor. I tell you what, watching Sarah's nightmare where Mr. Freehorn is cheering Littlefoot's name was the most whack thing I've ever seen. There are some weird and awkward bits, like the whole Longneck saving the world thing, a couple audio mixing issues, and the CGI landscapes looking kinda awkward. But only one of these things might really turn off people, and kids certainly won't care. Let's see, did we peak in quality, or is it downhill from here? Oh. Invasion of the Tinosauruses. Look, I enjoyed this one as a kid, and kids really won't care. They're just silly and will watch anything with dinosaurs if they love them enough, but I'm gonna say this. I could deal with alien dinosaurs. I could deal with some weird long-neck prophecy. What I can't deal with are pink triceratops and long necks the size of mice. Okay, now that I got that out of the way, there is a tree that gives off beautiful, tasty flowers called tree sweets. Sarah makes fun of Littlefoot for being short, and this leads Littlefoot to try to eat a flower from the tree. However, he falls into the tree, knocking every flower to the ground, allowing for a herd of tiny longnecks to eat every last petal. Of course, everyone sees that the coveted flowers are gone, and angrily demand to know who ate them. Tria, a triceratops that's an old friend of Mr. Freehorn and his current love interest in the movie, recognizes Littlefoot for running away from the tree. Seeing that everyone is angry, Littlefoot decides to pin the entirety of the blame on the little longnecks. At first he is laughed at because that's stupid, but once evidence is seen of a tiny creature that ate the flowers, the grown-ups decide that they need to exterminate the entirety of the tiny longneck population. Littlefoot ends up stumbling upon the tiny herd and lies to them that he wasn't the one who pinned the blame on them, and sneaks out at night to feed them food. However, this only gets the little ones in more trouble, as Littlefoot strips the entire trees of their leaves. Littlefoot's other friends end up seeing the tiny dinosaurs, and Sarah, who is currently on bad terms with her father as he is giving more attention to Tria instead of her, decides that just to spite him, they will not tell him about the little longnecks. However, Mr. Freehorn does find the hideout, and the grown-ups decide to bury their home with rocks. Littlefoot finally decides to tell the truth of what happened, which leads to everyone but his grandparents being angry with him. And the rocks still fall in the Longneck's hideaway anyway. The dad of the little dinosaurs decide, screw y'all, and try to leave the Great Valley into the mysterious beyond, but is spotted by Sharpteeth and accidentally leads them into the valley. The big and little dinosaurs work together to get the predators out of the valley, and Mr. Freehorn apologizes to the little Longnecks and invites them to stay. The next time when the tree sweets bloom, they are able to share the flowers with everyone, including the tiny ones. Kids will at least find the little dinosaurs to be cute, and the songs are catchy enough for the youngins. However, I do feel like a lot of the characters are a bit out of character and blow things really out of proportion. Mr. Freehorn kind of went a bit overboard with wanting to exterminate the tiny longnecks, even if they try to say it was because he wanted to try to impress Tria with a tree sweet. I mean, how good are these flowers where the entirety of the Great Valley is willing to unalive whoever ate them? Then we get Littlefoot, who's dumb and knocks out an entire tree full of flowers in the first place, and Sarah can be a bit of a brat in this movie as well, and that's saying a lot considering her character sometimes. It's really nice that we do get to see a storyline of having to bring a new step-parent to the family, though it would have been nice to bring up Sarah's assumedly extinct mother, as sometimes kids can have conflicted feelings when a previous parent is gone. Next up, we got The Great Day of the Flyers, which focuses more on Petrie and Sarah throughout the movie. On Sarah's side of the story, Tria and Mr. Freehorn are having a new egg, and are basically paying more attention to the new sibling than to Sarah. For Petrie's side of the story, he is preparing for the Day of the Flyers, which is supposed to be a coming-of-age event for all the Flyers. However, Petrie sucks at flying with a group. This leads him to getting bullied endlessly by his siblings. But wait, there's more. A feathered dinosaur named Guido comes to the valley, who claims to be the only one of his kind. They decide Guido would probably fit in more with the Flyers, and stays with Petrie's family, and Guido helps to give Petrie encouragement and defend him against his siblings. We get into pointless shenanigans with Guido sleepwalks, though at least we get to see a really cool Sharptooth design. But then the Day of the Flyers comes, and Petrie finds his own way in the event. Oh yeah, and Sarah's new sibling falls into a river. Don't worry, she's fine though. This one is okay, and I actually like the relationship between Guido and Petrie. There's some continuity here, and it is nice to see Sarah be like an older sister to someone, though Tria is really annoying in here, and the CGI and 2D animation blending is really bad here. I'm also not too thrilled at the pink dinosaur disease spreading through the Triceratops population, though this one isn't the worst one. That honor is saved for the next one. The Wisdom of Friends, also known as Littlefoot should have let these idiots be taken by natural selection. This is probably the only film in the series that made me want to just turn it off, and it's also the only film with a fart joke. I guess I can at least give the writer some respect for the restraint, sort of. The movie starts off with Littlefoot almost extincting his grandma by being an idiot, and then after that he becomes a stiff and chatters on about wisdoms every 5 seconds. He and his friend then come across a species called the Yellow Bellies, who probably have fewer brain cells than a rock. They want to go to Berry Valley with the rest of their herd, but they're too dumb to actually get there. So Littlefoot, instead of just letting the species just not exist, decides to help them to Berry Valley and teach them some wisdoms along the way. The Yellow Berries teach them some wisdoms, supposedly because, you know, it's smart to be having a rave in the mysterious beyond, and the sharp teeth of this film hardly get any screen time, getting temporarily defeated at the 30-minute mark and then not coming back until the last 10 minutes of the movie. I'm almost glad they pick and choose their continuity in their movies, because if I had to see these guys again, I'd probably throw myself into the mouth of a sharp tooth. Journey of the Brave. Thankfully this one came out in 2016, or else I would have to end this video on the note of the previous film. This movie comes out after the events of the TV series, so we get characters like Chomper and Ruby being permanent residents of the Great Valley, but this isn't explained unless you actually watch the series. In this film, we are told that Littlefoot's father, Bronn, is trapped near a volcano after helping other dinosaurs get out before himself. When everyone says it's too dangerous to go, Littlefoot decides to go alone, but his friends want to help him. Arguments break out because Sarah wants to get to Bronn the safe way, while Littlefoot wants to get to his father the quick way, and he ends up telling his friends that they are just slowing him down. Meanwhile, the grown-ups, Ruby and Chomper, try to find Littlefoot and company before they get into danger. Littlefoot and the others regret their fight when they get separated in the sandstorm, but thanks to a Yeehaw flyer named Etta, they are able to reunite, making their way to Bronn together and saving him from the volcano with the power of teamwork. This one is definitely better than the last film by a long shot. I love the design of the feathered sharp teeth, and it's cool that we get another unique sharp tooth design in the movie too. The new voice actors are a bit jarring, especially for Grandpa Longneck, who is voiced by Kenneth Mars, and Mr. Freehorn, who is voiced by John Engel. Unfortunately, both of their voice actors had passed away by the time this movie came out, and their replacements aren't bad, but it's just not the same. We do get a funny side plot of Petrie being the leader of a tribe of small dinosaurs. The story is predictable when it comes to Littlefoot's plot with his friends, and unfortunately the songs are really bad in here. Before I go over the ranking, I'll go ahead and give my final thoughts on the movie series as a whole. Of course, the sequels don't match up to the quality of the original movie, and they have varying degrees of quality. However, for the most part, they are just fun stories for kids. Kids are gonna love them all, and most of them are tolerable for their parents. Do these movies deserve to be remembered? The first one definitely does, and while the other movies aren't the best, I think that they're worth at least for some viewing of the future generations of young'uns, except for Wisdom of Friends. That one deserves to be burning in a fire. But we do get a couple catchy songs, good voice acting, and a couple memorable designs for the series. Now let's get into the final ranking of my summarizing thoughts of each film. The Land Before Time, whether you want to show this to your children or rewatch it, I highly recommend viewing this one, and it deserves to be remembered. The Great Longneck Migration. The relationship between Littlefoot and his dad is great, as well as the relationship between Pat and the kids, and they were the movie's strong point and boosted the movie up above the other sequels, even despite some of the weird elements. The Mysterious Island. This one is the most nostalgic for me, and one of the ones I enjoyed watching the most. The Big Freeze. I liked a lot of the characters and little scenes of this one, as well as how they touched on Spike's place and Ducky's family. The Time of the Great Giving. This one is one of the better sequels, even if it's not the most perfect movie, and I like how it marks the start of the characters' developments for future films. The Great Valley Adventure. There's nothing as wrong with it as some of the other sequels, but I don't consider it the best either. Ozzy and Strut were definitely the highlights of this film. The Stone to Cold Fire. If you're fine with the weirdness, there is some good stuff in here, however, just the rainbow faces is enough to put some people off. Journey for the Mist. This one is kinda just okay. It's filled with both missed opportunities as well as some good quality elements. The Great Day of the Flyers. I feel like Petrie's story with Guido was the strongest element of the movie, but Tree is pretty annoying and the sleepwalking sequence is kind of pointless. The Journey of the Brave. This one is a good comeback after Wisdom of Friends, and a somewhat decent end to the series, even if it is predictable. Journey to Big Water. While there are a couple good bits, it is pretty slow and some obstacles are forced. The Secret of Sora's Rock. Nothing about this is necessarily bad or offensive, it's just kinda dull. This one is probably the most forgettable one. Invasion of the Tiny Sauruses. This one was really bizarre, and some of the characters almost feel out of character and way too mean. The Wisdom of Friends. This one is filled with obnoxious characters and dumb decisions, making it the worst one. Thank you guys so much if you watched this far into the video, and like always, be sure to leave your thoughts on the Land Before Time series in the comments down below. And if you liked the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and click on that little notification bell. Until next time, this is Danse Macabre, signing off. Bye!